Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and today we have a super fun episode because we are past the main fall film festivals. We've had TIFF, we've had Venice, we've had Telluride. New York is still to come, but most of those movies have already been seen somewhere else. Before we dive into everything today and what has changed in the race, if you want to stay up to date with all the Oscar content, make sure to subscribe, make sure to drop a comment, drop a like. It helps us grow as well as helps keep you involved with everything going on here. Matt was just at TIFF. He saw 50 movies. If you missed any of those vlogs, definitely check them out. He gives his reviews of all 50 of those movies. And I have Virginia coming up soon. Well, I probably won't be seeing any world premieres. I will be seeing some big Oscar movies, so more reactions before movies hit wide release. But Matt, what has changed in the race? Because it's been about a month since we've done one of these predictions.
Oh yeah, it's been a while, and we haven't been keeping up on that news. So there is a lot of news coming out of the fall film festivals. This is the point of the year where things change really fast. American Fiction just won the People's Choice Award at the Toronto International Film Festival. I think this is one of my first big W's of the year. How long have I been talking about American Fiction as a dark horse contender?
It's been a while, like 3 months.
I've been talking about it for like months. Also got to give a shout out to Cephalopod on our Discord server, who was right there with me, really hyped for this movie, probably boosted my confidence in it a lot, because I read the synopsis of it and went, that sounds really cool. And then I think it took having that extra person to say, yeah, this sounds really good, for me to go, okay, maybe this is something, now that it's not just me noticing it. And it was. So American Fiction won the People's Choice Award. As a reminder, ever since 2008, every single English language winner of the People's Choice Award, which is all but one, every single one of those winners has been nominated for Best Picture. The only exception of a film since 2008, since Slumdog Millionaire, that has not gone on to be nominated for Best Picture was in 2011, when a Lebanese film called Where Do We Go Now, directed by Nadine Labaki, won the award pretty inexplicably over The Artist and The Descendants. That was a very strange one, and we're not seeing that repeated this year. I've seen a lot of people already saying, oh, American Fiction's not that strong. Well, if it wasn't that strong, it wouldn't have won. This film is strong. It is going to continue to build buzz, build hype. At this point, I feel the same way about American Fiction as I did about Green Book in 2018. It's a crowd pleaser that really plays well with all audiences, and like Green Book, it came out of nowhere. Also, The Boy and the Heron came third place, and The Holdovers came second. Usually what we see every year is that 2 out of 3 of the People's Choice Award top 3 go on to get Best Picture nominations. This year, American Fiction and The Holdovers will get those nominations. The Boy and the Heron will not. That is the one that's going to be left behind. Now, I will take the L. I kept saying The Boy and the Heron wouldn't place. It did. I was wrong. Yeah, it didn't win in the end. American Fiction did, which is very exciting. I like a shakeup in the race. What else has shook up the race this week, Dylan?
Well, since the last time that we talked, we also had Venice, which Poor Things came out as our victor. And you talk about TIFF having 2 out of 3 make its way over to the Oscars Best Picture lineup. Venice usually has 2 movies that generally find their way into Best Picture. Poor Things winning Venice kind of solidifies that's at least one of them. Take your pick of what the other one is. It's probably Maestro. But there's some other choices there as well. And on top of winning Venice, it topped the Telluride's People's Polls, and it got a very, very, very high score. Yeah. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head.
4.51.
It's one of the best scores. That is one of the best scores in recent memory. Movies that score that high usually win at least 1, if not 2, above the line awards. So adapted screenplay, director, actress, picture seem a lot more likely now.
And on the side of some movie sales, 2 of my favorite movies of TIFF now have companies representing them. That is Hitman, which has just sold to Netflix for $20 million. I wonder if they're going to release it this year. I think they might hold on to it till next year. But if they do release it this year, it is a great contender for the Golden Globes and could even sneak its way into some of those Oscar categories. It's not very likely, but it totally could. It is a great crowd pleaser. I do wish that we saw it place top 3 at TIFF, but even without, it could still perform very well, especially at the Golden Globes. Oh man, it would do well at the Golden Globes. Also, this is pretty old news at this point. It happened during Venice, probably 2.5 weeks ago, but Origin, my favorite movie of TIFF, sold to Neon. I think it's a perfect fit for them. I could totally see this becoming their Best Picture push if Anatomy of a Fall doesn't work out the way that they expect it to. But, you know, I'm not going to say that right now. I'm still riding with Anatomy of a Fall, but Origin is a great movie. It's pretty polarizing. I'm one of the only people that I know that really loved it, so I don't know what you're going to think of it, Dylan. But anyways, Neon has it. We got some other news about some other movies. So Dylan, what movies did we get some good reactions on?
Well, kind of as I alluded to before, Maestro out of Venice, it's good. It's not bad. Those test screenings, who knows about that? I know you're a lot higher on it in terms of its Oscar prospects than I am, but this just solidifies that it is a contender. It is in the race. Just how in the race is another question. But one thing I want to go back to real quick for Origin. You mentioned the movie being super divisive. Do you think that may have been part of the reason why Netflix dropped it and then Neon picked it up? Netflix may have been a little bit more like shaky on it, while Neon's like, no, we love this. We want to push this up.
So Netflix, from my understanding, Netflix never officially had the film. They just have a distribution deal with Ava DuVernay's company, Array. But because Ava DuVernay's company has had such ties to Netflix, I think everyone just assumed it was Netflix because Array was doing it. We all just assumed that it was Netflix. It was just a true independent film, which is another thing Ava DuVernay talked about in her Q&A. The only way she could make this movie the way that she made it is by doing it fully independently. There was no studio money in this movie. It was all basically her and private funders, and Neon is a great fit for the film.
Great, that is great to hear. And that moves us to our final fact before we dive into my post-festival Best Picture predictions is we don't really have many flops this year. There's no Bardo, there's no The Sun, there's no Empire of Lights. Everything is at worst good, and at best exceeding expectations.
Yeah, this is the very rare year where the fall festival season is not a fucking slaughterhouse. Because normally, at this point in the year, all of these contenders that we've been expecting to be great all year long, normally a lot of them come out and underperform. So a lot of our predictions through the year have been counting on a few of these big movies underperforming. Maybe Poor Things, The Holdovers, Maestro was the big one that we both really thought was going to, be the expected Netflix movie that then just didn't perform that well. But that didn't happen. None of these movies underperformed. Everything that was expected to be good was good. I'm breaking from my trend, my stat. I've always said on this channel that it has to be a first-time underdog nominee that will win Best Picture. Someone who's never been nominated before, someone who's a fresh face. And this year, I don't think it has to be that way, because every single movie that we expected to be good, it was good. And there's not a lot of room for those underdogs to come in and take the thunder. So I have a previous Best Picture nominee winning the award this year, and I think you do too, Dylan. So I'll let you take it away, but I will say we have different winners.
I was sure of that heading in here, but here we go. Post-Fest, I know New York's still to come, but post-Fest Best Picture predictions. My number 1, my number 2, my number 3, they don't really change because I was already high on the Poor Things train. So it's still Oppenheimer, it's still Killers, it's still Poor Things. I think between these 3 movies, they split director, they split adapted. Which one doesn't pick up something? That is still out there to be seen. I know most people would say Killers of the Flower Moon. However, I still do believe once this movie does come out, it will have a huge resurgence. I'm more confident with Killers of the Flower Moon than I am with some other stuff, is its chances in adapted screenplay, because everything they did to rewrite the story, change the narrative from the FBI angle over to the Osage tribe. I think that's something that can be a big selling point on the campaign trail. But will that be big enough to take down Oppenheimer? That has to be seen. Those are my top 3. Since we last talked, Barbie is possibly an original screenplay contender. It's probably winning that award if it's over there. So number 4 feels safe. I'm not on the Barbie can win Best Picture hype train that was kind of building the last time that we did these. I feel like that ship has kind of sailed. Yeah, but I still do think if this was a year 5, Barbie would still be a Best Picture nominee. And with that statement, it becomes my number 4. Here is where my list gets a little shaky, gets a little tricky, and here's where I think a lot of people could make some disagreements. But just based off of my top 4, Matt, what are your initial reactions?
Well, my initial reactions are Oppenheimer. Yes, it's either 1 or it's number 2 in my mind. For me, it's number 2, and I have Poor Things at number 1. Now, Killers of the Flower Moon, I also have at number 3. and Barbie I have at number 4. So we have the same top 4 in a slightly different order. Personally, I think Poor Things is just going to be such a lovable film. It's apparently very wholesome, very quirky, and very different, unique in a way that reminds me of how people felt about Everything Everywhere All at Once last year, or The Shape of Water in 2017, which is when you have a weird movie that ends up winning Best Picture, it has to make people feel good. It can't make people feel icky. There's a big difference between Beau is Afraid weird and Everything Everywhere All at Once weird. And it sounds like Poor Things is much closer to that wholesome type of weird, the type of weird that makes you smile, that makes you laugh. I think Poor Things is going to capture the hearts and minds of voters. I think it's going to come in at the right time. It's going to do very well with the critics. It's going to pick up a ton of awards along the way. And in the end, I think this one could end up sweeping director, adapted screenplay, and picture. I do think Nolan could still win director. Killers of the Flower Moon, I maintain, yes, it will build up hype again when it releases in October. And I think it's going to build up so much hype that it's going to be hit with that frontrunner fatigue that we've witnessed time and time again. This is The Irishman. This is that type of movie that we expect to be huge, and then it is huge, and then people get tired of it. It doesn't seem like the type of movie people are going to want to root for because we've seen so many movies like it in the past. And that's why I think it's a firm number 3, personally. Just, it's going to be big, but I don't see it having an angle where people are excited to cheer for this movie, the way that they will be for Oppenheimer, the way that they will be for Poor Things, the way that they even would be for Barbie, or some of the lower films on the list, like maybe even American Fiction. I'm not saying American Fiction's higher than Killers of the Flower Moon yet. That would be stupid of me. Now I'm noticing at number 5, you finally conceded The Holdovers is good.
Here it is. Yep, The Holdovers is good. It beat the allegations. It's here. It's top 5. Does it win Best Picture? No. Does it win Screenplay? Probably not. Does it win Actor? Probably not. But it's that movie that gets a bunch of nominations, 5, 6, but probably doesn't win any. I know you ever think there's a shot for supporting actors. There could be. But at the moment, I think this is that movie that gets Best Picture nominated but does not win an award. I just want to go back to my top 3 just real quick. I think they all 3 have a good case for Best Picture. Right now, Oppenheimer, to me, this is the Academy's chance to regain some of that limelight of, hey, we're awarding the populist choice. Think of a Titanic type movie, Lord of the Rings type movie. This is the highest grossing biopic of all time. This is going to be a top 2, top 3 highest grossing R-rated film worldwide. And that to me speaks volumes in terms of this film's populist appeal as well as how it's done critically as well. Critics love this movie. They've been kind of hesitant on Nolan throughout his career, and this could be his moment. And Killers, Apple, I feel like they know what they're doing. They're making sure this movie isn't seen until the theatrical market outside of Cannes. I feel like that's going to help avoid some of the frontrunner fatigue, because it's not like this hit New York, this hit TIFF, this hit Telluride. It isn't like all the critics have already seen it. A select few at Cannes have, and now everyone else has to wait, and that just builds the anticipation for this movie. But yes, 5, 6, 7 is my next tier. Holdovers, American Fiction, Netflix slot, which for the moment is Maestro. Holdovers, it did what I needed to. Placed top 3 at TIFF. It has not been really hit with any controversy, and people seem to really like the movie. Plus, it has a package. Screenplay, actor, supporting actress, maybe editing, maybe supporting actor. Pretty good. Best Picture, you're good. American Fiction, it won TIFF. You said the stat at the top of the show. I am a big stat man, so therefore, American Fiction, it is number 6. This could pick up actor. This could pick up adapted screenplay. Maybe editing, but probably not. This is probably a 3 nomination movie, but hey, we have to have those. Look at Triangle of Sadness last year. And then number 7, Maestro, my Netflix slot. This looks like our Netflix contender, but as I mentioned when we talked about it over at Venice, this could be a movie that just kind of fades throughout the season. Right now, actor, actress, makeup, maybe original screenplay, sound, cinematography, they look good, but as we get further with the season, it could just drop down a few pegs. And the issue with Netflix right now is none of their other contenders look very strong. May December has above the line potential. It doesn't have below the line potential. Rustin has Coleman Domingo. Not much else. Hitman, people love it, but what's its package? Maestro looks the best on paper, but go to last year. Other movies look more good on paper than All Quiet, and All Quiet was just an across-the-board type contender.
Now, back to American Fiction, I agree with you that this looks like a 3 nomination movie, and that's probably what it will end up being because it's MGM. and they routinely get films less nominations than they probably should. For example, Women Talking last year should have been a 6-nomination movie, and it ended up with 2. And Licorice Pizza should have been like a 6 or 7 nomination movie, and it ended up with 3. American Fiction also looks like it could end up with 3, or it could even end up with just 2. But it will end up in the race. MGM is good at getting their films in, but just barely. But that said, if we see an overperformance from American Fiction, we could see it in editing, we could see it in score, it does have a very good score, and we could see it in supporting actress for Erica Alexander. So those are 3 other nominations we could see for this film, but in my mind, I think that the floor for this movie is Licorice Pizza, and the ceiling is Coda. It could be that sort of small contender that people just fall in love with, even though there's not many categories that they can reward it in. And as you said for your Netflix spot, I agree with you. I think Maestro is the one for now. Critics seem to be rallying behind it. I'm sure industry will too. I don't think at this point Netflix has anything else quite as strong. Some of the other contenders they have, May December, The Killer, Rustin, Hitman. Maestro is the one that looks clearly strong. I'm going to stick with that one as my Netflix contender, and I'd be very, very surprised if anything else from their lineup made it in.
I know The Killer didn't get bad reception, but its reception essentially killed it in the race. As you see here, last time we talked, I had it like 15. It's off my top 25. I had this being a 0 nomination movie, Fincher's first in a long time. But now, Tier 3, Best Picture. This goes from my 8 slot down to my 13 slot on this graphic that you see next to me. That is The Color Purple, Anatomy of a Fall, The Zone of Interest, Past Lives, May December, All of Us Strangers. 3 of these movies I feel good about making it in. Which 3? I'm not really sure at the moment. Color Purple is our one contender outside of maybe Napoleon that we haven't seen yet, so we don't really know what it is yet. I'm still on the boat of once this movie's seen, people will warm up to it, it will be in. For a musical of this scale to miss Best Picture, you have to be awful. And I don't think this movie will be awful. This movie could miss director, it could miss actress. That's good enough to make it into Best Picture, I think. It could miss a supporting player. As long as the movie is fine and it's well received, it will get enough votes to at least be our number 10 slot. Plus, Warner Brothers is behind it. Say what you want about how they run their movie department in terms of theatrical release. They know how to campaign. We saw that last year with Elvis. 9 and 10, I have Anatomy of a Fall, Zone of Interest. Is it smart to have both of these movies in? I still feel there's room for both of them to coexist, but my faith in that is dropping each and every day. I still feel better about Zone and Director, but I feel better about Anatomy everywhere else. Anatomy has actress. It has original screenplay. Zone has director. Maybe has international feature. Maybe has cinematography. And maybe sound. I don't know which package sounds better. Director, to me, we saw that last year with Triangle of Sadness. That director nomination is strong enough to get yourself in the picture. I know Triangle also tacked on a screenplay, but still, solo director versus solo screenplay would lean more towards director. I know Anatomy's also probably being an actress. For the moment, Anatomy's 9, Zone is 10, Neon, A24, they still find their way into the race. However, A24 is also sitting at number 11, Past Lives. This makes more sense for a nomination to me, but I don't see the package. Zone, I think, could be director, picture, that's it. Past Lives, it's out of actress. It's out of supporting actor. It's out of lead actor. It has original screenplay, which is no longer winning, and maybe score? Is that good enough to get yourself into picture? I know Women Talking got in last year with just screenplay, but it was definitively winning screenplay. I know we kept telling ourselves, like, oh, All Quiet could win, All Quiet could win. But Women Talking was probably always one. It was just like, oh, can it really just win with that being its only nomination? And we saw it do that last year. Past Lives, if Barbie's in the category, and even if Barbie's not, Anatomy's there. Holdovers is there. Can Past Lives still win with no other support in actress, actor, supporting actor, editing, score? Probably not. So that's why I have it on my outside at number 11. Before I dive into 12 and 13, Matt, what do you think of 8 through 11?
Well, at number 8, you said that a musical of this scope can't miss unless it's really poorly received. And I disagree with that. I mean, we saw as recently as the one that's jumping to mind for me is Into the Woods, which got good reception. It got multiple Oscar nominations, and it didn't make it in. Likewise, Mary Poppins Returns, another movie that had good reception, was nominated in multiple categories and did not make Best Picture. And that's where I think The Color Purple could fall, is that it could be really good, but just not quite a Best Picture movie. Now, in terms of Anatomy of a Fall, I also have lost a little bit of faith in it just from some of the reactions I've heard out of TIFF, out of Telluride. A lot of people just going, it's like an artsy episode of Law and Order. That, to me, doesn't bode extremely well. Now, the thing about Anatomy of a Fall that's keeping me with it in here is that it does have a really good package. Original screenplay, actress, potentially director, potentially editing. It could get those. It feels like the international film that's going to make it into Best Picture. I very much disagree with you on the A24 10 and 11. I think Past Lives is absolutely above Zone of Interest. After seeing Zone of Interest, I instantly dropped it from basically every single category. I do still have it in director, but I have it in director without a picture nomination. I have it in director and sound and nothing else. I don't think it's going to be submitted for international feature because I don't think it will be eligible. A24 is not releasing it in either Poland or the United Kingdom before the cutoff date. And even if it was, I don't think this would get nominated for Best International Feature because of the way that they do the nominations in that category. The shortlist is a killer for movies like this. We saw that with Titan a few years ago, that Titan would have been nominated if it made the shortlist. But making the shortlist is a massive hurdle with the system in place there, which is that they assign your movie to a random group of people, and those people give it a score between 1 to 10, and then the 15 movies with the highest score advance to the shortlist. This means that sometimes polarizing films get left out. Films that receive strong reactions but also very strong negative reactions, those movies don't make it through. In fact, we used to have a save system in the international feature category, which was meant so that a governing body could make sure that certain films that were important, that did not make the cut because of being too artsy, those films would be saved and allowed to advance, even though they technically shouldn't have. And apparently there have been winners in the past, even though they technically should not have been shortlisted. And the Zone of Interest, I don't think would be shortlisted. It is such a different film. It's an experimental piece of art that defies all conventions of what a movie is. It is boring as hell, and it stayed on my mind in a haunting way, but it's boring. It's a dull movie to watch. It is like watching paint dry, and that's the point, but it's not a film that I think is going to have the appeal to make it into some of those categories. Whereas Past Lives, you say it only has picture and screenplay. I disagree. I still think Greta Lee can make it in for actress. So I have picture, actress, screenplay, score. And that to me is a much stronger package than director and sound. I think this could really, really move up, especially as we're starting to see it perform very well overseas in Europe. Past Lives stays in my 10. Zone of Interest is just on the outside.
Yeah, for Color Purple at least, I hear your examples, but if those were years of 10, don't you think those movies would have made it into Best Picture? Into the Woods definitely would have. Mary Poppins, I can see the case for it missing.
I don't think Into the Woods would have made the 10. Mary Poppins, I do think would have been the 10th slot that year, but Into the Woods, I don't think was. It was a little bit farther away, because it did get mixed reception. It was like a 60s on Metacritic movie that a lot of people really hated, and some people liked quite a bit. But Mary Poppins, yeah, you're probably right. That probably would have been slot 10.
Up next, we have number 12, number 13. Both of these films, if their studios didn't have a bigger movie, they would easily be my top 10. They just have a bigger competition ahead of them. I know Searchlight can get 2 movies in. They have Poor Things. They have All of Us Strangers. Can they coexist? Probably, but for me, what hurts All of Us Strangers more is the rise of American fiction, because they're battling for the same categories. Actor slot, adapted screenplay slot. I know American fiction does have a supporting actor. All of Us Strangers does. But can you be in Best Picture with just supporting actor and maybe something else? I'm not sure about that. I know there's the case for editing. To me, if you're not a editing heavy movie, you need to be top 3, top 4 in picture. Like Poor Things is going to be. Like The Holdovers could be. Like Barbie is. Those are the movies that are going to pick up those extra editing slots. I don't think All of Us Strangers can leapfrog one of those without something major changing the race. Because at least to me, the big thing that happened out of Telluride is people said it was great. But as soon as something else came out, all their focus went to that other movie, and Strangers kind of got dropped a little bit behind. TIFF happened right after that. People were like, oh my gosh, American Fiction, Holdovers. And then All of Us Strangers, I haven't heard the buzz for it as much recently, but hey, it does have a great score at minimum. This is going to be one of the best reviewed movies of the year. This will be one of the most awarded movies. May December, on the other hand, I can still see the above the line play for it, even if it's not in picture. Portman's probably in that Greta Lee range in actress where they're just out looking in, because actress became one of our most stacked categories for the year. There's 9 actresses I could see having a shot into that category, and it's just which ones are they picking, which ones are they dropping. And then it also has supporting actress, supporting actor, screenplay in a weaker original category. There's possibilities there, but it doesn't look great if it's not in the picture 10. So that's at least how I stay with my top 13. The next in line are stuff I could see. I don't see how they get in just because of how strong everything is. Like, if we had flops, like, let's say, I don't know, Maestro flopped, Holdovers flopped, Poor Things was too weird, stuff like Air, Priscilla, Rustin, they could rise up because Rustin has Colma Domingo. Priscilla got pretty good reviews out of Venice, plus Kaylee Spaney won the Volpe Cup, which puts her very much in the conversation for Best Actress. That could be kind of a tandem nomination along with costumes. And then Air, we've been talking about all year. Stuff has to fall for that to rise. Nothing's falling. So Air is just stuck in this like little range where like
Fiction.
Another year. What do we do with it? It would make sense like last year, like 2020, like 2018, but here 2023 I don't see the path for it.
I just want to talk about All of Us Strangers because I disagree that American Fiction is its biggest competition. I think Past Lives is its biggest competition because those are both fighting for the slot of the acclaimed indie low-key movie that is going to capture critics' hearts and might be a little bit too subtle to actually win any categories, but is widely beloved. That said, the thing with All of Us Strangers, I think it's firmly in adapted screenplay because we'll talk about that category later. I don't think American Fiction booted it out. Yes, it may have booted out Andrew Scott's possibilities in Best Actor, with Jeffrey Wright coming into the picture. This could be our representative international director. I know that this is an English language film by a British director. This fits the profile of something like Drive My Car. This fits the profile of something like Triangle of Sadness, like Another Round, those types of films. This feels like that. Highbrow European members of the Academy are going to love this movie. And so if Jonathan Glazer is not our Best Director international nominee, if Justine Triet is not the international nominee.
But at least to me, another person who kind of checks off all those boxes is Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things. So kind of like last year where
but the film is much bigger.
It is a lot bigger of a film, but I see Yorgos as a lot of a Todd Field type contender from last year where is he an international director? No. But he checks off the box of what those type of voters do like. Last year, we still got Ruben Östlund in there as well. But this year, I mean, it could be Yorgos and it could be Glazer. It could be Triet. It could be All of Us Strangers. But at least to me, the biggest thing that's hurting Strangers on top of the American Fiction in those same categories and Past Lives of fighting for that not smallness, but indie type movies that capture their heart is the fact that Poor Things is just so strong. Are they going to take away possible stuff for Poor Things to give it away from Strangers? Were they competing in the same categories?
Keep in mind though, Shape of Water, 3 Billboards. Those were number 1 and number 2, and they were both Searchlight films. Searchlight can prioritize multiple films, and those were competing in all of the same categories. Sally Hawkins versus Frances McDormand in Best Actress. Richard Jenkins versus Sam Rockwell versus Woody Harrelson in Best Supporting Actor. Best Original Screenplay. Best Score. All of these categories, they were going head-to-head with their own films. They know Poor Things is their win contender. I think they know that for sure, but that doesn't write out that All of Us Strangers is going to get a push. If anyone can do it, it's Searchlight. They are the kings of campaigning. There's no one in the game as good as them. They're on another frickin' level when it comes to this stuff. I do feel like Strangers is being underestimated. To your point of people moving past it at Telluride when other films premiered, that's just how festivals work. You know, people don't end up talking about the first film that they saw late into the festival, even if it's absolutely amazing. What's new? What's fresh? And I think when Strangers comes out, it will stick. It's one that seemed to be a standout from the festivals.
At least to me, what I would have liked to see from Strangers coming out of these fest is the fact that it's the most talked about movie, or up there with the most talked about movies. The fact that stuff like Poor Things, stuff like The Holdovers, American Fiction, and even Saltburn, a very divisive film, I feel like still made a bigger buzz when it came out. Then All of Us Strangers, Saltburn's nowhere near on my list, but the fact that I heard more people still talk about that days after its release than I heard about Strangers.
Really?
That could be from pundits, that could be from online circles. I don't know. I just feel like there was no buzz out of Strangers. It had its world premiere, which was at the same time as other big world premieres, and then just I didn't hear much more after that besides, yeah, it's good. That's what we expected. But regardless, next up on our list, we dive down. We're really digging deep now for Best Picture. I feel like our 10 is probably in that top 16 somewhere. One of them that isn't is Napoleon. It has a tech package if the movie's good. It's Ridley Scott, though. He can make good movies and they're still ignored. Or he can just make completely awful movies. Napoleon could be House of Gucci. It could be Last Duel. It could be somewhere between them. Or it could be Gladiator. Probably not Gladiator, but probably more one of those first two. Then we have Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I just don't see anything still. I have also pulled it from score. So now I'm back to my only animated feature nominee. That's where I was when it came out. And I was like, oh, people are talking about it. Score, sure. Animated feature, though, it's still probably going to win. I think there's a small chance for it to lose, but I would say like 90% chance it's winning that category. Then we hit Hitman. Netflix could pull some magic with this movie, but also this could be next year. Don't really know what to do with it yet. And then I think our big dropper outside the killer, and I guess for some people Saltburn, but I was never a believer of Saltburn, would be Ferrari from Neon. At least for me, that's the biggest dropper after these fests. It came out, people like, it's fine. It's not great. It's not awful. It's just there. So to me, Ferrari is one of those movies where like maybe a few years ago it could have been a player, but here 2023, it is not a player at all.
I'm sad about Spider-Verse, but that's what happens in a year where none of the expected contenders end up being bad. Maybe in another year where some of the movies that we expected to be good don't turn out being good, Spider-Verse could make it in. But that's not this year, unfortunately. Everything is performing just as well as you would expect it to, which means there's just no room, and that breaks my heart. But yeah, like you said, Ferrari, that was definitely a big drop. I think it's clear now that bidding war between A24 and Neon was for the commercial potential of Ferrari and not for the awards potential. We have to remember these are businesses and they're not thinking exclusively of awards every time they pick up a movie. They have to put some food on the table, and that's what Ferrari is. It is their way to cash in. They know that this is going to make like $90 to $100 million. And for a company like Neon, you got to take those payments when you can get them.
At least to me, I'm not sold on Ferrari doing well at the box office. That just seems like a movie that doesn't have the target demo at the box office. Like a Ford v Ferrari was more of an action movie. From what I hear, Ferrari's just more of a drama, and those haven't really hit. I know we just had Oppenheimer, but outside of Oppenheimer, those haven't really hit in years past. But 21 and 22. These are two movies that I think have the potential to boom, but also have major bust potential, and that's Boy and the Heron and Origin. Two TIFF movies. I would have liked to see both of them place number 1 or number 2 to have more faith. Boy and the Heron got number 3. That's good. Origin didn't place at all. I feel that's kind of a death blow to it, but I feel they could still poke their head up if they catch one with the right audiences. Origin maybe more so than Boy and the Heron, but I would want to see Origin pop up first before moving super up. 23, 24, 25, I don't really care about these at all. Saltburn's here just for the weird reason it has some sort of weird resurgence, but I don't see that. Sound of Freedom, memes, yeah. And 25, The Boys in the Boat. This is the one true contender that we have yet to see. Napoleon has had test screenings. Boys in the Boat has had nothing. So it's here because why not? But MGM has American Fiction. They don't care about this.
I would take The Boys in the Boat off and put something like Asteroid City there instead, or Dumb Money. Dumb Money, which could get a Golden Globe nomination. Asteroid City, which could also get a Golden Globe nomination, especially because we're about to see a new Wes Anderson movie drop on Netflix, which may boost the profile of that film a little bit. The Boys in the Boat just seems like it's destined to become like the Tender Bar. You know what I mean?
All right, good point. Dumb Money is taking out Saltburn at number 23. That's the switch I'll make. I had Dumb Money in my top 25. Took it out to put in Origin, and I was like, oh, you know what? It makes more sense than Saltburn now. Saltburn's being blanketed, so I probably shouldn't have it here at all. Dumb Money could pop up, like you said, at the Globes. I think that has a chance for some Critics' Choice. When they had those super long lists, maybe they can slide it into a screenplay. Like I said, my top 16, maybe 17 if you want to stretch it. That's where our main picture boys are at. Once you get closer, you kind of know what your real players are, and when you have to fill out a list of 25, it's like, well, there's not really 25 movies in contention, so let's just like plug some stuff in here. It's kind of like what Sound of Freedom is, Boys in the Boat. It's just like, possibly, I have more faith in them than stuff that we have seen that have completely flopped, but do I have faith in these movies at all? No. So that is my top 25. We are here right before New York Film Festival, after TIFF, after Telluride, after Venice. I would love to hear down below, what are some of your thoughts? What are some of your bold predictions for this category here? Do you still have one of Oppenheimer, Killers, or Poor Things as your number one winner? Or are you, swinging for the fences? American Fiction, strong off People's Choice, Maestro, Netflix is finally going to get its win, or something completely else? Let us know down below. But until next time, my name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this is Fantasy Filmball.